A little bit about two-part analysis. Two-part analysis questions are going to present you with a brief written scenario, again integrating verbal with quantitative. So you're going to have a written scenario that's going to ask you to make two choices related to that information. And so you see here a picture of what these two-part analysis questions are going to look like. You're going to have column A that you have to fill in and column B that you have to fill in. And those are your two choices, and they're going to be connected in some way, and you're going to see what I mean when we look at a sample here in a moment. And really, it's similar to the rest of the GMAT. In other words, the types of questions you're asked, the prompt you're given, is going to be very similar to everything else you're already preparing for on the GMAT quantitative and the GMAT verbal section. We'll actually come back to this hypothetical example in a moment, but here's what I mean by that. Some features of two-part analysis. First and foremost, the question type that you just saw, this is the first time you're seeing it, and it's called two-part questions, and you're going to have 4 of them. And just as we saw, there are questions where your answer choices are all listed here, and you're picking one of those answer choices for column A and one of those answer choices for column B. And column A and column B will be described in that question prompt. So again, your possible answer choices are given on the right side in that third column, and your choices, the choices you have to make, one for each column, are listed there in those first 2 columns. Again, not something you have to memorize, but just introducing it to you here, and you're going to see an example here in a moment. Again, an average of 2.5 minutes for each of your integrated reasoning questions, and because there are going to be 4 two-part analysis questions, you can expect to spend about 10 minutes total on two-part analysis. Now the general strategy should start to look familiar to you. It's the same general strategy as for the other 3 question formats. You want to start by understanding the prompt, planning your approach, and solving the question. Let's take a look at the specific strategy, however, for two-part analysis. And the specific strategy is this. You're going to be starting with that prompt, and you actually want to read that prompt first. You want to read the given information and try to figure out what they're asking, what type of question is it? Is it critical reasoning? Is it statistics? Is it probability? So that you know how to plan and prepare. You don't want to rely on prior knowledge. Everything that you're going to need to answer the question is going to be contained in the information in your question prompt. Then you want to determine what the question is asking. Again, what are those 2 columns all about? Are they connected in some way? And before you start to choose the best answer for each column, you want to review all of the answer choices. You want to do that before choosing an answer. Are the tasks dependent or independent? And remember, I've seen students do this where you'll actually accidentally pick a couple from each column. You only are making 2 total choices, only one from each column, and of course both actually have to be correct to get the total question correct. There's no partial credit, as we've seen on integrated reasoning. So what's tested? Well, quantitative's fair game, verbal's fair game. If you see a question that's quantitative in nature, really it's open season. Honestly, they can ask about anything and everything that you're already having to prepare for the quantitative section of the GMAT. Could be algebra, could be statistics, could be probability, combinatorics, word problems. I mean, everything that you're studying already is open season, and that's good news for you. The good news is, like I've said before, there's nothing new to learn, and yet on the other hand, quite a bit that you could be asked. So anything and everything there. Now in terms of the verbal section, it's mostly going to be critical reasoning. And I say it's critical reasoning in disguise. And what I mean by that is it's very vaguely disguised. You're going to be asked to strengthen and weaken arguments. You're going to ask maybe to identify assumptions. It could be some cause and effect things. And there may be little logic games. And in fact, we're going to look at a second example here where I introduce that. That's the only thing that might be a little bit new. And it's not rocket science. It's not overly difficult, but it's just a new way of thinking about verbal word problems. So here we have a sample question. And I want you to press pause. I want you to look at it. You actually have already been given your question. So think through that, read that, do everything I just talked about in terms of the specific strategy. Get your mind around everything that's being asked, and then we'll work this together. Go ahead and see if you can answer the question on your own. Go ahead and press pause. All right, how'd you do? Well, it's a combinatorics question, right? I mean, this is straight up quantitative section. You need to identify the number of possible combinations for each of the beds. And that's obviously what column A is and column B. Column A, it's almost like you're answering two questions in one. If this were the quantitative section, you probably only would have had to figure out, for example, how many combinations there are for the different types of flower arrangements in bed A, for example. Here you have to do both. How annoying. But they give you more time to do it, so good for them. Now you should know how to do this because hopefully you've already reviewed the combinations lessons. If you haven't, go back and review that. But we'll take a look at how to actually do this math. And they give you all sorts of different information up here. So let's take them in turn. And here's how you'd want to use your scratch paper. So step one is let's just do bed A. Let's just do one column at a time. How many combinations are there for bed A? Well, how many total types of flowers are we told that there are? Well, first things first, they tell us that there are 6 different types of annuals, right? We have 4 different types of perennials, and we have 7 types of shrubs. So this is just kind of my cheat sheet, just to remind myself of exactly what I'm dealing with. Now, we're being restricted in a certain way, aren't we? For bed A, what does it tell us? It said bed A must have exactly one type of shrub. So bed A is going to have one shrub. And just like in the combinatorics video, I'm going to write this out just like I have horses finishing in a race or whatever. At the end of the day, how many flowers am I putting here, or shrubs or whatever? 5. It says it contains 5 types of shrubs or flowers or whatever. So I'm going to divide this up into 5 different slots because that's what I have to figure out what's going on, right? And so I have slot number 1. Now it's telling me that bed A must have exactly one type of shrub. So how many shrubs could possibly go into this bed? 7 total possible choices, right? So 7 possible shrubs could go here. Now, filling the next spot, we've already used up our shrub, and then it has exactly 2 types of annuals. Exactly. Notice exactly. It's not going to have more than 2. So we've also used up our shrubs. So the shrubs are done. In terms of the annuals, we have an annual here and an annual here. Now, how many annuals can we choose from? Well, we can choose from among 6 annuals. So 6 possible annuals can go here. And then once we've placed that first annual, how many could go here? Well, there's only 5 left, so 5 possible annuals can go there. Now, here's the catch. Is this a permutation or combination? In other words, this could be annual 1 and this could be annual 2. Or this could be annual 2 and this could be annual 1. We have to account for the fact that we have exactly 2, but not both combinations, so we have to factor out the overlap. We have to divide by 2 factorial. Does that make sense? And if not, revisit the combinatorics lesson where I explain this in more detail. But you should recognize that that's the case. And then the final 2 spots, of course, then must be perennials, because we've already placed our shrub, we've already placed 2 annuals, and now we have 2 perennials left. How many total perennials could possibly go in this spot? 4. And then once we've placed those 4, how many could possibly, or the 1, how many could possibly go here? Well, there's only 3 left to choose from, so 3 could go there. But just as we saw with the annuals, we need to factor out the overlap, so we have to get rid of the 2 factorial overlap because it's a combination, not a permutation, and that's your math. And remember, we multiply all these together, so it's 7 times 6 times 5 over 2 factorial times 4 times 3 over 2 factorial. And the good news is you have your calculator. And when you do all of that out on that calculator, what do you get? 630. So you're going to have to trust me here or get out your own calculator and do it. And you should be able to figure out how to make that math equal 630. And once you do and you look over here, there you go. We're halfway home, right? Because bed A, we choose the correct answer choice for column A, which would be 630. So we'll bubble in that one right there. That's it. And now we simply do the same thing for bed B. So let's go ahead and click over, new scratch paper. And I'm going to go back in and refill in that we've already done 630 for bed A. And now we do the exact same thing for bed B. You know, you may already have on your cheat sheet the fact that we have 6 annuals, we have 4 perennials, right? And then we have 7 shrub types. And then we do the same thing because we're going to have 5 total flowers or shrubs in bed B as well. And so I need to create my situation here. And then the exact same logic applies. What does it tell us about bed B, however? It said bed B must have exactly 2 types of shrubs. So we'll start with the shrubs. We'll place the shrubs first. How many shrubs could there be? 7 times, and then once we've placed 7, there's only 6 left to choose from, but we need to account for the overlap. So we need to filter out 2 factorial. And then what else does it tell us? It says 2 types of shrubs and 1 type of annual, right? And so we have our annual. Okay, and so our annual is 6, so there are 6 of those, and then the rest are going to be perennials, right? And so how many perennials could there be? 4, and then 3, and 4 times 3 over 2 factorial, and we're off. That's it. That's our math. And again, you use your trusty calculator that you're going to be able to use on the integrated reasoning section. You multiply all that out. Lo and behold, you get 756. Thank goodness it worked out. It was one of our answer choices. If it wasn't, you probably did something wrong and you have a chance to go back and figure out what you did wrong, but you'd actually fill that in there. And then that's it. You're off to the races. You filled out column A, you filled out column B. You're assuming both are correct. You check it and move on. And sure enough, you would have gotten this 2-part analysis question correct because you did the math correct. Hello again. Hopefully you found the information in that segment helpful. If you did, just imagine how much you would learn in the full lesson, or better yet, the full course. If you like what you saw, check out www.dominatetheGMAT.com for our full course offerings. So thanks for watching, and go out and dominate the GMAT.